This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Still social distancing? Take WPSL, WSTU, and the Power of Talk Radio with you digitally on TuneIn or Alexa at home, office, or car.
The following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the T. Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
Here we are, Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor, two of the original three Mouseketeers. Greg Fasula, attorney, is missing today, but we do have Alan Love, retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin, special guest member who's here today. So we are going to get a little bit, oh, I forgot, Dan, you're now a Russian American.
No, I'm never going to be a Russian American.
Alan is a Jewish American, and I'm a Mutt American, and Greg, you're an Italian, somewhat American.
I am an Italian American.
Are you 100% Italian?
No, about 70 probably. My dad was half Italian and half British. God help him.
I did that.
And then my mom was a full blood.
I did the genealogy thing,
Yeah.
And all this time we thought that we were Russian and Polish because my grandmother used to write back to the old country in Russian and Polish. So I thought that was all of our roots. We're only 10% Russian, Polish, 2% Ashkenazi, 50% Irish and English, and the rest is made up 12 or 15% Finnish. And I don't know how they got over to Finland.
Because Finland is right across from Russia. The Finnish Bay is right there.
So that's probably what they swam across the ditch.
Well, when my dad and my family ran from Russia after the communist, the Bolshevik Revolution, they went right to Finland.
There you go.
That was their first point of entry, was Finland.
You cannot say Bolshevik on the radio.
Bolshevik? Why? Bolshevik?
Well, here's something. Okay, you guys talking about, ancestry. I can remember when my dad, and Nancy and I took care of my dad for a long time. So he comes down from breakfast and he goes, I became a citizen yesterday. And I've told you this story before.
Right.
And I go, what do you mean, Dad? You've been a citizen for decades. He goes, no. He goes, last night is the first night I ever dreamt in English. Now, my dad spoke 11 languages, and he I guess, had always dreamt in his native tongue.
Sure.
It never occurred to me what language my father dreamt in, because I only dream in English. But for him, my dad was so happy when his subconscious went to English automatically. When he was sleeping, he thought that made him a 100% American, and I was very proud of that day.
You know what? It's kind of sad, but the way it was in my dad's family, he learned very, very little Polish Russian, very little, because at home, nope, you're an American, you only speak English, and the old people would speak whatever.
When you were in sleeping, my dad came over here at the height of McCarthyism.
Yeah.
All right. People didn't realize that he hated communism way more than they could ever even imagine.
Yeah.
So he said, I guess to my grandmother, all we'll speak is English when he's awake. That's all he'll know, and that's all I know. I mean, I know some good curse words that my dad would yell at me in Russian, but I don't know anything.
Well, I remember my dad used to every once in a while, he'd talk to another Polak, and they'd be talking certain sentences, like you said, there was certain words, but most of them I'm sure were cuss words or something.
Of course they were. That's what you thought your name was after a while, right?
Yeah, Knucklehead, right? It was 11 before I didn't know that my name was Knucklehead, but yeah, my dad's favorite thing to do, because he was a Second World War vet, he had that big army ring.
Of course.
With a great big
Just
knot
turn it upside down and whack you in the head.
And he did. I got a permanent hole in the back of my head because I got whapped so many times, and his line was always, that's for what you did today that I don't know about yet.
And it was always true.
Well, unfortunately, as you and I both know, boys growing up, if they're normal boys, don't always go according to the plan. we sometimes deviate a bit and run amok. Now, young girls never run amok, right, Victoria?
Never, ever. That's how we keep you straight.
On the other hand, I can tell you a few stories about Victoria running amok, like running into sliding glass doors and trying to get away from a guy that was married, but nothing serious. I won't talk.
But that's a nice thing.
Those are adventures.
He wasn't telling us the whole story.
Well,
That's
you
right.
didn't.
Or the rest of the story.
I guess
or
you,
the truth.
by the time you asked,
It was fake news.
It was very fake.
So then back in, I don't know, 8 or 9, or back in 09, give or take. Yeah. Victoria Loyd, Remax of Stewart, hardest working realtor known Main Demand, which you've got to be working awfully hard lately.
Well, yes, but there's a lot of things that are coming up that we'll talk about that's happening in the real estate market, too.
Like what?
Well, the biggest thing is appraised values. They're not, what's happening, people are coming in again and buying so quickly and are willing to pay certain values, but the values haven't caught up yet to the appraised value.
Right.
So how does that work? Do you have to come up with more cash then?
Sometimes. There's so many different scenarios. There's one thing with a contract that if it does not appraise and both parties don't agree to change the price, you can cancel without any penalties.
Sure.
The
Right.
seller
Right.
and the buyer.
Right.
But a lot of cases, the buyer is anxious. They put out a lot of money. The seller's ready. So you can adjust the price and come down to that value. The next thing is, as we can talk about, is maybe we can go and look and see, maybe we can give some values that have sold that we think are good comparable values to that appraiser to say, can you please look at these? Maybe you can make a change in it and change the value a little bit for us.
See, what people probably don't know, because years ago we used to order the appraisals ourselves. We knew the appraisers. They were local people. They knew the market very well. Well, today, those days are gone. The banks or the lender they order the appraiser, and he may come up from Fort Lauderdale.
Well, see, this is the thing that I try to tell the people, because of the problems we've had in the past. And we used to be able, like Joe said, we might say, hey, Bob, you do 100 appraisals, get that 1,000 or 2, can you squeak it a little bit? And they go, okay, and it was fine.
Sure.
But we're not just talking 1,000 or 2.
Yeah.
We're talking, I've had values that are 60,000, 8,000, 40,000.
Somebody I referred to you, a couple, 3 weeks ago, and I don't remember exactly. Young woman, not so well. Here, let me put
Lynn.
Lynn, and she lives in a magnificent neighborhood with magnificent, and everybody that wants to live there up on Skyline Drive.
Yes.
But she said all the people on her block, they've sold to each other, and they've deflated the prices so they didn't have to overpay taxes. And you also, when it comes to property taxes, it's oftentimes based on the purchase price. Well, if you can lower the purchase price by 20, 30, 50 grand.
But see, there's your mistake again. And Joe, it's changed since you and I were doing real estate.
Okay.
And now they do it 2 ways. So if they come along, they're either going to base it on the purchase price or what they feel is the assessed value of that neighborhood.
Now,
so
who's
even
they?
The county,
county
the city,
property assessor.
whoever the assessed values are. It used to be just one or the other, but they've changed it because so many people say, hey, Joe, let me slip you at the 100,000 under the table.
Yeah.
I'll buy your contents for 100 grand.
That's right. It's the
That happened to
truth.
me, literally.
I never did it because it is against the
Of
law,
course.
but people have
Was it
come and asked
was it
that.
really against
Yeah, it
the-
is against the law.
was it against the law in 04?
Yes, it was.
okay,
So don't
why?
say you did it.
But why would that be against the law?
Why?
If you agreed to sell buy my contents?
Because
Just
they're
asking.
saying that you're not supposed to, because that's not a true contract. You're paying somebody under the table for something.
It wasn't. Well, okay.
Wait a minute, that's not under
Well,
the table.
literally,
Yeah, it is.
my house in Sewell's Point appraised for $1.5 million. We sold it for $1.5 million, and I was more than ecstatic. But then at closing, the guy said, "Hey, Joe, why don't I just give you the $100,000 for the contents and stuff?" And I said, "Sounds good to me." Title company said, "No problem."
Well, that's different because you're saying it's your contents.
Oh yeah.
Or what if
But
it is my contents? I mean, I'm just selling
You
them.
can. People do that on high-valued homes. That's not a problem.
Okay.
When I think about my daughter, she's got this refrigerator that costs $20 grand. She's got more money in her kitchen than the cost of my first three houses combined.
Right.
But Sherry, they make a few bucks, but she's got what those monster refrigerators that are 6 feet.
Sub-zero.
Sub-zero.
But
They're
they're
cool.
they're
They're
not
big.
cheap.
Yeah, my brother has them.
Internet hooked up and stuff.
No.
They don't order food to
my best.
They order reservations.
They order ice cream.
I had a neighbor. I had a neighbor in Sewell's Point.
You got it. You got the joke.
He
right.
built this magnificent 12,000 square foot house. 6,000 was on the second level, which was the inhabit. Just the two of them, of course. So I get to meet him, and we're talking and stuff. And he moves into the house finally. He says, "Hey, Joe, go in the refrigerator and get me whatever it was." So I went in, and I couldn't open the refrigerator. And I said, he walks in, and he opens it with one finger. And I said, "Don, what in the world's going on?" He says, "Electric eye." And I said, "You got way too much money when you have a toy on your refrigerator."
Electric eye on the refrigerator?
No, that's taking it too far.
He did. But he had so much money. I mean, it was called any kind of toy you want. You know, it's like your brother, right? Hey,
yes.
Instead of a 50-foot boat, let's get a 60-foot. Why not? You know, extra $2
think
million.
he's
Who
had one that
cares?
small.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the situation was, when I think about when I did that at the closing and it came up, it was called. We didn't hide anything.
No, that's different. I'm saying people literally tried to lie
To
about.
deflate
yeah,
the house.
deflate
There's
the
no
house.
contents
Right.
involved. It's just
That's
a scam.
right. They're just paying you money under the table. Yeah. Now the other things that can happen here, okay? So we're talking about that. Is that this? It depends on how much money the person's putting down. The question that you asked. Sometimes they don't have to come up with more money, but let's say that they said, okay, I'll take that purchase price. They're putting down a considerable amount of money, but now it takes them off the 20%.
Right.
So then they'd have to pay, unless they put more money into
Mortgage
it, but they might
insurance.
not have it.
Sure.
They'd have to pay the mortgage insurance on
Right.
top of that.
Well-
And we're talking high-end homes here. We're not, and the homes we are selling, we used to be able to sell 50 and 60,000. We don't have those anymore.
No, those are-
if you're not in the couple $100,000
That's
bracket.
a she shed today.
Yeah, she shed and a he shed too.
I love that. She shed. I didn't even know there was such a thing.
What a great commercial.
Isn't
Yeah,
it?
that
What
was-
a great
I don't think it's
commercial.
around anymore, though. I haven't seen
That
it.
commercial?
I haven't seen it
Oh,
lately.
yeah.
Well, have you
it's
ever
around.
noticed some of the best commercials? They don't last long enough because they were the most entertaining ones.
I used to love the Dr. Pepper one.
You know the
She's
one.
a pepper. You're a pepper.
The one
Wouldn't
I
you?
still like that's come back is Jake from State Farm.
They got a new Jake.
Oh, that was cute.
There's
that's
a new
cute.
Jake.
Yeah.
It's not the original Jake.
No, it's a different Jake.
It's a new Jake.
Yeah.
Well, we're integrating State Farm's office. You notice that? The new Jake has got a little darker color.
Well, that's okay.
I know, but it's called, and I like that. It's not a big deal. Like the one Jake, the new Jake, looks at his other buddy. He says, "This ever happened to you?" And he goes, "Oh yeah."
Yeah. Like, what is he wearing?
New kid. When you're talking to the State
But
Farm.
if you're talking to State Farm at 4 a.m, which is the original commercial,
yeah.
Right.
your wife.
Can you
wants
really
to-
talk to somebody at 4 a.m? Besides me?
I guess you can.
Besides me?
Besides you.
340-1590, 340-1590. And then before I take this call, we'll talk about Mike Paulus last, who was Victoria came in first, and Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, came in because they work hand in glove. And I preach all the time that before you go shopping for real estate, you should find out what you can afford and what you qualify for. So you get a hold of somebody like Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, who is on the line. Hey, Mike, you're on the radio.
You remember me?
No, not really. I haven't seen you forever.
Yes, it's been crazy times in the mortgage industry. It's been phenomenal. These low interest rates have quadrupled our business, and it's just absolutely amazing. 31 years in the business, and this is the busiest I've ever been.
Well,
Well, he's going to make money. He's going to get a bigger boat now.
well, of course,
No, I don't need any bigger boat.
Now, are you having a hard time finding new employees to help with this overload of work?
It's funny you say that too, because I've just gone on a hiring campaign. You cannot hire anybody with experience in the business anymore unless you're willing to pay top dollar. And that's kind of how this industry is. They'll try to steal your employees away, pay them top dollar. We just lost an employee, a valued member of the team, and they just offer them silly money. The trouble is that once things slow down, they're the first ones to get laid off. And I don't treat my employees like that. If I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to keep them, I'm not going to hire them.
You know what though, you're funny you should say that, because my girl Diaz works in the title business, and she's getting solicited all the time with the 60 to 90 grand starting jobs. And I said,
and that's exactly what happened to us.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, we lost a
headhunters,
great-
they're back out.
Now, do you guys ever do this? I know, I remember my son telling me, because he's an attorney, and he was telling me about some of his friends who get hired just for specific projects. They know it's not a forever job. In fact, I have another family member who's in the where they make, these videos like, movies and stuff. Well, they get hired just for that project. They know when that video movie's over that they need to find a new job.
Yeah, it's a per diem gig.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do they have any people in your industry who do that, who just fill in for jobs?
Yeah, for example, there's companies out there that offer third-party processing, third-party underwriting, third-party closing, which means that you're just kind of subcontracting that business out.
Right.
I mean, the problem with that is even those companies are maxed. They're not. Many of them are not taking any new customers. I've been trying to bring on another subcontracting company to do some of that work, and I've been calling them every day this week, and they haven't returned my phone call.
It's tough to find
good people.
Good people. It really is. It truly is.
You know what gets me is unemployment rate is 10, 12, 15%, whatever it is. But unfortunately, when people were making $1,000 a week unemployed for a while, it was pretty hard to get motivated to go back to work. And they're now, some people are, in fact, I've talked to a few people. I said, why'd you come back to work? He says, because my boss said if I don't come back to work, I can never come back. It was called.
Yes.
Yeah, it was called.
Well, I did a mortgage for a gentleman who ran a lot of the chain restaurants down here. And obviously they don't, pay top dollar for their employees. And the problem is when they opened back up, he couldn't bring any of the people back. They didn't want to work.
Yeah. And hey, you can't blame them. They're making more money unemployed than they could make working.
But I can blame the system for allowing that to happen.
Well, that's a terrible thing.
Yeah,
you can and you can't, Dan.
Well,
people were starving, scared, didn't know where they were going. You know.
Yeah, but hey, when you get $600 a week unemployment plus your regular state unemployment, you mean literally you're making
about $1,000, but the thing of it is people were scared. It's like when we had the foreclosures and the bankruptcies.
Yeah.
The banks didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how to sell. Now they do. They're more knowledge, but they didn't have the knowledge.
Well, I think what the government should have said, if I was in charge, I'd have said our maximum that we will contribute is 6. But in no condition will you make more
than you used to
make working.
Yeah, I understand
Would that be a fair and equitable thing?
Yeah, and I agree with that.
But that's not what they did.
But
but it's hard to find out who makes what.
Oh, I know.
Well, the other part of the problem, they had to immediately react. The government did.
Absolutely.
They did not want to go back into 2008 and 2009.
Of course not. That's the first thing I saw.
Yeah,
and they were on their way. You're right. They were on their way.
Yeah, it's good, and they're coming down and counting down, and we thank God that we still have a job and we're still working. But
absolutely.
There's, I think, of people that can eat.
Hey,
now,
Mike,
are you still seeing a lot of people come down from New York or trying to get away from?
Absolutely,
COVID?
We got New York, New Jersey, right?
It's amazing.
And Miami, right? Miami area too.
Would you put it in that order? New York, New Jersey, Dade County. 1, 2, 3.
I was just looking at watching CNBC this morning, and one of the commentators were giving some statistics of the real estate sales in Southern Florida, and it's off the charts. It's amazing. I mean, it's.
Yeah, but which order do you think it is, Mike, that they're coming down? I think New York and New Jersey are kind of neck and neck.
See, it's always been.
Yeah, it's
they're
certainly New York. We're seeing many in New York. I'm working with several people from New Jersey right now moving down, and there's most certainly a mass exodus of New York.
Well, it's funny because they were saying a lot of people from New York were moving to Cleveland, Ohio.
Well, here's what.
Well, they're moving anywhere but New York.
Rock and Roll Hall of
Fame. Yeah, anywhere but New York.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The Florida Chamber, Dr. Jerry Parrish, is still got Miami-Dade, at least moving to the Treasure Coast.
That's the number one source.
Miami-Dade number 1.
Yes, it is.
New York number 2, and then New York, Jersey is together.
Right.
And then D.C. is 3.
Wow. That's my hometown. And they used to go to the West Coast all the time. Now they're coming over to the East Coast.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, they always went over to the West Coast.
There was a reason. I'm from Michigan.
I-75.
I-75 comes down. Now, we all went to the West Coast. Why? Because we were too cheap to pay the toll to come across to the East Coast.
Well, see, I always came to the East Coast, Joe. I never went over to the West Coast.
Well, guess what? 95 runs to Maryland.
That's because you're from Maryland.
You're from there. Well, come on, girl. I mean, this is easy math. I mean,
hey, let me tell you a little story about my drive. driving skills.
Well, hey, forget her driving skills.
Uh-oh.
Don't ever drive in the car with
I
her.
was on the Beltway, and I said to somebody, because I was going to Ocean City, Maryland, and they said, just get on the Beltway and just stay on the Beltway. Well, I did, and I took it all the way around.
All the way around.
They didn't say take the exit.
How many times?
I only did it once, but I can't. Don't tell me to take it and
And
just
stay.
follow and stay on it, and I did, and I took it right
Lori,
around.
took it
I did
literally.
the same thing one
You
time.
did? You did? I love it. See?
What happens is, Mike, years ago when I first moved to Florida, I had to do a demographic study for Chase Manhattan Bank, and they wanted to know in-migration. And the interesting thing, this is back in the 70s, that every county in the state of Florida, in-migration was from New York first.
Yes.
East Coast, West Coast, all of a sudden, West Coast, it was more Michigan.
Right.
But East, bam, we're too cheap to pay the toll to come over here.
Is
you
that
know.
amazing? Are you
I-
still that cheap?
I had to borrow the money to move over here, to pay the toll.
Well, I hopped on a plane on April 15th, 1977, and came to Florida and didn't know a soul and just kind of landed. I had a ball.
She wanted to get away from her current husband.
That's a great motivator.
It was, and you did.
And I didn't.
Anyway, other than that, Mike, everything else is good. I'm glad to hear from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, record low interest rates. It's really keeping us busy. If you are considering making a purchase, if you're considering refinancing, even a reverse mortgage, all these products are affected by the low interest rates. It's never been a better time.
Hey, Mike, I got a question for you. CNBC yesterday did a story on the Fed saying they were going to hold the rates at the current level for maybe 5 to 10 years.
Well,
Is
they were talking about the Fed allowing higher inflation and not reacting immediately.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Well, here it is.
Yeah,
What does that do to you?
Our rates aren't directly affected by what the Fed decision. Now, things like home equity loans, the prime interest rate is directly affected by what the Fed does. That's a pretty long cry from a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, because they're talking about an interest rate that banks borrow from the Fed over a 24-hour period, not a 30-year long term.
Right.
So we're affected by the 10-year T-bill more than anything. So if you're looking at mortgage rates and what they're trending, you look at the 10-year T-bill. Now they have been trending up. Back in the heart of the COVID recession here, we were at about Joe, 0.4, 0.5 on the 10-year T-bill.
But it's only
we're up to
0.7.
Yeah, we're up to 0.75. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
yeah.
still incredibly
Still
low.
incredible.
But-
Single digits.
below
Joe.
one.
But it has
Single.
No, below single. It's below 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, that does constitute a 0.25% increase in the 10-year T-bill, and it did affect mortgage rates, but they're still at an incredibly low rate, and to some extent, a big extent, it's really affecting the real estate market, because people who could not afford a $300,000 house 7 months ago, hey,
Now
they
they
might be able to afford that
Yeah,
house now with
yeah,
the lower
yeah,
interest
yeah.
rates.
Well, they're going to
So
have
that
to,
is
because that's the
stimulating
average
the
home
market.
anymore.
Yeah,
That's
just,
right.
just about
Yeah,
it.
they have to anymore. Hey, why don't they regulate credit cards too? I mean, what do they do? Because there's no usury law
Have you
anymore.
ever been in
They
America?
hold a mirror. If you can fog it, you pass it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's scary though.
Well, you know what happens
Hey,
is
I just got a new vehicle, and this is the first new vehicle I've purchased probably in the last 20 years. And they're giving crazy interest rates.
Yeah, they
now.
are.
So it's
Well-
a great time to finance anything.
I always
Zero.
get zero. What
Zero.
did you get? You had to pay something?
I got 0.9.
Yeah, I got a Ford F-250 to tow my boat,
That's
and
a big truck.
they are not giving anything away on those vehicles.
Hey, that's their big profit, and they're in demand, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky just to.
Now,
to
if you
get
get a
one.
6-foot bed, here's the thing. Keep in mind, if it has 6-foot bed on that truck, you can depreciate the entire thing in 1 year.
You hear that?
I did. I got the 6.5-foot
Good
bed.
man. You'd
Yeah,
make
but
sure
it's
you
6.5.
make sure you're
Well, 6 and more.
6 and more.
Well, we
make
just
sure you're
wanted to
counting
make sure we
nose.
fit in there.
Make
That's
sure
it.
you're counting nose because
Why
you
is that a write-off? Because you can
because
use
the
it to
government
work with it?
yes the
Business.
government will let you depreciate it in 1 year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think there's a weight requirement too. I think it has to be over 6,000 pounds or somewhere around there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Wow.
the
Shop smart if you get in the truck. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, McGuell,
Yeah.
Well,
listen.
and give me your phone number again so I can call you when I need a truck.
Well,
I
when
got
you
him
need a
on speed
mortgage-
control. What are you talking about? I call him all the
When
time.
when you need a mortgage, it's 772
yeah.
285 0315.
Repeat that. We were laughing.
285-3083.
No,
you said?
no, 28.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, Victoria knows it. You
I
can
know it
give
by
up.
heart. Are you kidding?
Hey, listen. Here, what happens on the show? We don't give out numbers often because there's too many numbers. But you call the radio station 340-1590. They'll either take your name or they'll give you the number. 340.
I lost the paper though.
What's your name again?
We'll write it down for you.
Yeah, but Greg's so old now he can't. Even, what's your name again, Greg?
I don't know.
No. 340-15. Hey, Mike. Good talking to you, my man.
Good talking to you, Mike.
Okay, I'll
Thanks.
give you a
Keep working. You got James done for me yet?
Well, I just texted you on him, so I will get back with you today.
Okay, bye.
Hey, take off half of your.
It doesn't work.
That one
This
won't come
half-
apart.
This doesn't even work.
One side doesn't work. Well, poor
Now, I
Alan.
was going to ask Mike
He
this.
said to do it.
Maybe you guys
Are
know.
both sides of yours working?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
can you give him
Alan,
half?
Yeah, give Alan half.
In my business, there's schools and classes you can take to get licensed as a mortgage broker. Do you know if that's the case in insurance? Do they do that in mortgage? How do you become a mortgage broker?
Yeah, you have to go to school just like you do real estate. They have mortgage
Is that
broker
right now?
licenses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
See, with me, of course, this is a long time ago. You
Long.
didn't have to go to school. You had to just take the test. Well, the first test was a Series 6.
I took my Series 6. That's a tough class.
I read the glossary and passed. I thought I'm a flaming genius. Then I went and took the 7, did the same thing. I got a 64. I said, well, okay, I'll study like
You better
crazy.
study next time.
A month later, I took it. I studied for a whole month. I got a 63. It went down 1 point. Then I went to school for 4 or 5 days so I could pass.
Yeah.
But,
Makes a difference.
It does. It
Yeah.
really does.
Hey, and they're not making
Thank
them
you,
easy,
Jesuits.
Dan. The new tests are
Well, the new tests are designed to fail you. They really
Yeah,
are. They're
yeah,
designed to
yeah.
fail.
Well, they had talked years and years and years ago, remember in real estate, that you might have to take a college course.
Well, it was 40 hours back to get real estate brokers, right? That's what I had to do.
It
Well,
probably
you
was.
had
It
to
was so
literally
many
go
years
to
ago.
school.
Oh, yeah, no, I went to school.
Burt
Definitely.
Rogers,
Oh yeah.
remember? Burt?
Yes, 'cause
I didn't go to Burt Rogers.
Yeah.
I went to one in Orlando.
when I got hurt, I broke my legs, had to be laid up
Both
for a
of
while.
them?
Yep, knees
On a
in it,
motorcycle?
Yes. So I'm thinking, well, what can I do to kill some time? I took my FREC 1 and FREC 2, passed all that, but I never did anything with it. But I just wanted the knowledge, But
Right.
everything's changed.
Well, it's like I took cosmetology years
That's
ago
right,
too,
that's
and I said to these kids nowadays, when you had to do the finger waves, they never even know what a finger wave is today, or the hair. No, it's when you
Well,
go
we
back
know what a
and
finger
forth.
is. Careful
Yeah,
now.
finger
That's the
wave
one finger salute.
in your hair.
340-1590, 340-1590. Well, Wisconsin. Come on, Alan, let's hear about
Would
Wisconsin.
you be prosecuting all those protesters if you were still a
Believe
prosecutor?
it, I believe very strongly in peaceful protesting. I do not believe one iota in violent protesting or violence for the sake of violence, and those people I would definitely prosecute.
What gets me is, and I try to find statistics on this, but there's very little media coverage, let alone statistics showing the number of people that are coming in from out of town and joining into these demonstrations.
Well, how about that young boy who's all this hoopla is going about, who came from out of state over to Wisconsin and ended up in all this trouble? My understanding from what I've been reading is his job is a lifeguard in the town that he was arrested in, and he goes there every day for his employment in the town. It would be like, let's say, Port St. Lucie being one state line and the state line being in Stewart.
Okay.
That's
Sure.
about how close he is to that line.
No, there's the wall in Stewart.
Yeah.
No, it used to
there's
be
a bridge.
it
There's
used
a bridge.
No, it used to be a bridge. It's
Yeah.
now a wall.
The bumper stickers used to say, "All roads lead to Stewart," and they're all closed.
Yeah, right.
I remember that.
So anyway, what you're saying is he went from, but the key thing was, and
It should be against the law. I think I'm right. Am I saying this, Alan? If you cross the state line for purposes of rioting and stuff, is that not against the law?
That's a federal crime. Yeah,
but it's against the law to riot anyway. Riot. quote.
Okay.
Not
State lines
not
you're
demonstrate.
talking,
Riot.
state lines.
JetBlue is talking about folks dressed in black, all black, who are flying their planes into various locations, and all of a sudden a riot pops up. Now, you just touched on it, Alan? Is there a federal law that would prohibit them from going from one scene to another, if you will?
Well,
not to travel, but to create mayhem. And
that's what I mean. Yeah.
It's a jurisdictional thing. If you cross a state line, the feds can get involved, and believe me, the Fed penalty can be harsher than the state penalty.
So now what I'm hearing, tell me if you've heard the same thing, that since there's been no action by the prosecuting state attorney in certain areas, that the Fed's stepping in and saying, we're going to take over and we're going to prosecute under federal law, which eliminates the need of the local district attorney who's supposed to be prosecuting who isn't. Have you heard that?
That's what Trump is saying.
Right,
hey,
but
in
state also, let's say a county prosecutor like me refuses to prosecute. The attorney general of that state has the authority to prosecute.
And if he refuses, can the Fed step in?
The feds cannot step in unless it is invited or crossing state lines, and you can prove that the person lived out of state and came in for the purpose of doing harm.
340-1590, 340-1590. We have another phone call. George, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio. Hey, George.
Pizza protest. So now he thinks he can pivot, huh? Now he thinks he can pivot?
I don't understand what you mean.
I'm talking about Biden. They mopped the floor with him for 4 days straight. And they put him in the basement. Then he comes out and he's delivering pizzas. The guy up on in Philadelphia or wherever he was speaking over there in Pittsburgh, he goes, pizza protest. I mean, it's too late, buddy. You did too much, too little, too late, Johnny Mathis.
Well, hey,
this guy, he calls it good trouble. You own it. He calls it peaceful. It's not. It's violent. Seriously violent. Blue cities, blue mayors, blue governors. Don't you dare blame it on J. Trump. Don't you dare. You know? Now everybody knows it.
Well, and you know what happens, and I'm with you on this, but the bottom line is people are not as stupid as some of these politicians think they are. When there's violence, I don't care if you're a liberal or conservative or an intermediate or whatever you want to call yourself, violence means people get hurt, buildings get hurt, people get killed, people get maimed, you can have nobody is for that stuff. Nobody. And when you can justify violence, well, guess what? You're in the wrong country. You don't.
That's exactly right.
You don't justify violence. You know, peaceful demonstrations. Martin Luther King was the biggest single one going for peaceful demonstrations, and he did a magnificent job. Instead of what people think,
he would have been outraged.
Oh,
he would have been outraged.
That's right.
He would have been outraged. This is the antithesis of Junior. And he would have been outraged. He would have said, this is exactly what I stood against.
Yeah.
He's saying it's good trouble. It's good to have this. Doesn't say a word. And then he thinks he can come out and pivot because he looks at the polls. Sorry, Joey.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Hey, listen.
It's over, buddy. You can't do that now. He as far as I'm concerned, they're just proxy terrorists. He is the terrorist. And all those people around him are terrorizing our country. And now this guy, Aaron J. Danielson, nobody even knows who he is, executed in the street because he had an opinion that was a little different. So he can't, this isn't about protest. This isn't about George Floyd. This is about taking the country down. Now, come on. Everybody knows this. I saw pictures of Oakland. There's blue paint all over. There's fires. Look like another country.
Yeah.
So,
hey, my man, listen.
This is what
we Jordan Light, hey, I understand we share your empathy and sympathy in this thing, and hey, elections around the corner. Most of us think that Trump's going to do a pretty clean sweep, so hey, let's just hope we're on the same page.
Unless they cheat.
Yeah. Thank you, my man, for calling in.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Yeah, I've got my 18 ballots in the mail, so I'm ready to.
You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to mail them
I got
in,
my
yeah.
pickup truck and my AR-15, so
I got my printer making them right now.
You know, the late Tom.
Are they in color?
Yeah, the late Tom Teeter down at WSTU. Tom would talk about his father being a precinct captain, and would drive around with ballots in his trunk, and would stop at a payphone to call in and say, "Let me know when you
How many you need?
when you
How many you
need
need.
these, and how many do you want."
Well, you know.
Oh
here-
yeah,
let-
yeah.
let-
I
let me-
mean,
there is no such thing as any one party owning this abuse. Because
Oh, no,
I mean,
no.
listen, the Republican Party. Well, and they were being very considerate. They took them home to count them to make sure they were done right. I mean, so listen, all the abuses have gone on forever, and they always will. Greg, you know,
But with the technology we have,
you'd think
it should be minimal at best.
it should be minimal at best. And hey, voting by mail, that's going to work. There's going to be Dan, you and all of us have lived a long time in this room, and it's kind of sad. This seems to be the worst ever that I've lived through with venom between.
Joe, if you really think that's a great way to get it done, mail yourself 5 $100 bills in the mail.
See how many
and
show?
and see how confident you are it's coming back.
Should I let them be transparent?
Yeah.
Well, didn't they just do a thing? They sent out 400 or 500, and they said the post office says 2 to 3 days, and they did most of them, but they did lose 5 or 3 or something out of the 500.
Well,
we
to
have
give you
to.
an
We
idea,
lose mail all the time.
Yeah.
Just regular mail. What
Yeah.
are you talking
Oh,
about?
yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
But it's
Yeah.
funny how we accept that. You do not accept that at your bank. If out of every
No, you
100
don't.
transactions
No.
you do, 3 or 4 are messed up, you're
Well,
a bad
look how they
bank.
shred sometimes your mail, because it has to go through when
Sure.
they stamp it.
Do you send anything regular mail in
Yes.
business?
Yes.
I see.
I
Everything,
have to sometimes.
Everything I do is FedEx. Everything.
well, we will mail
Most of my
an
stuff is, but it's
occasional
occasional.
affidavit now.
Yeah.
Most people want it emailed, but an occasional affidavit goes. But we've got an instance here where we now, maybe 3 times a month, get the mail for Waste Pro on Selvets.
Wow.
Well, that's only right.
4100 Selvets Road. Ours is 4100. Metzger.
Yeah.
But the zip codes are not even close.
Well, I do the same thing. I get the neighbor's mail on Tiffany down the street, Mariana. I mean, the zip codes are the same, and it might have my number, but a completely different street name.
Well, we've all had a few, but it's not a
No,
constant.
this is regular now.
No, I get
so
a lot
it's-
of it. I get a lot of that.
340-1590, 340-1590. So we didn't finish Wisconsin, other than the fact that here comes again. How did the Trump thing play out yesterday?
Well, I think it played out well for President Trump, and the reason I say that is it was televised, and he was talking law and order, and he was allowing people who are the leaders of law and order in the state to basically talk to him rather than he talking to them.
Yeah.
And that I thought played very well. There was division. I mean, the media basically did. In fairness, NBC did a good job of showing people who didn't want Trump to come to Wisconsin, but also showed people who did.
Yeah.
And anytime NBC does
Is
a
objective.
middle ground
Yeah.
is refreshing,
Yeah.
because we need that in the media.
340-1590, 340-1590. I want to talk some business.
You've been
Dan,
talking
you got any
business.
more politics?
No, actually, I got to go to the doctor. I got to get something cut off
More
the back.
more skin cancer?
Oh yeah,
taken out?
yeah. So I gotta.
You
leave.
know, listen, you're going to be one big lumpy guy. Well, you're not so skinny
I
now.
went yesterday. I didn't have one thing on
Yeah,
me.
but
Well, you got
look,
that
you
dark
got that
skin.
dark
to
skin.
I
start
know.
with.
Do you know I had one? the funniest part about it, I've had one basal cell, and it was right here on my earlobe.
And here, your
and they
hair
couldn't
covers your ear.
all the time.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I had said to her, you know what's so funny is, my stepson has the same little dot on his ear in the same spot. Isn't that strange? She said, what little dot? And that's when she looked at it. It was a basal cell, and Dr. Stephen Adler took it out for me. I went to
I had to Mohs
plastic
on my
surgeon.
ear.
Well, I had one on my neck and this one on my cheek.
Well, it looks good.
The one on my neck came back positive.
Right.
The one on my face, they go, it came back negative, but we don't believe it. We're going to check it again. Now.
Well, that's good.
No, are you serious?
I'm serious. They go, oh, it's coming back as something else, but we're positive that's not what it is. So they're going to biopsy it again.
I think you see the same dermatologist I see.
I see Dr. McKay.
McKay, the same one.
Oh,
Yeah, I went
she's
there.
Really good. She's
yeah,
really good.
Andrea was the one I
Yes.
saw.
Yeah.
Are you going to her today? Because McKay's doing all the surgeries.
Yes,
so.
she'll do the surgery, and Annie will probably just close it up.
Yeah.
Speaking of business,
I'm out of here. See
Bye.
y'all
Good
later.
luck
have a
with
nice
everything.
trip, Dan.
Tell them I said hi.
It's
Say
fine.
Victoria
Hey,
said
I wanted
hi.
to talk about a couple of things real quick. Number one,
Sorry, we're out of time.
I know, you're welcome. Two big companies recently have split their shares. And people think this is a really momentous occasion, but let me just have a real simple education. If a share of stock sells for $100 today, and tomorrow it sells for $20 a share because they split it and made 5 out of 1, the value is the same because those 5 shares times 20 would be 100. Now, what happens is oftentimes when they split, they lower the price per share that more people can afford to buy them. So oftentimes there is pent-up demand, people thinking they're going to buy and get a bargain, but they're not. They're literally taking the same dollars and just dividing it by 3 or 4 or 5, and now you're buying shares at that lower price. Does that make it any better deal? No, not one bit. However, just so you know, split shares, they are all of a sudden pretty big in the media because some monster companies in the last week have split shares, and they caused a bit of a run on it. Okay?
Well, what it affects is the indexes. Like Apple was the number one stock as far as influencing the Dow Jones Industrial Average because it is a capital weighted average, but now it's number 17 since their 4-for-1 split.
So because the price back to cap, but that just affects the interest. It doesn't affect an individual person unless, Alan, they're buying the index, right?
Right.
So if we haven't noticed, the NASDAQ is up 38% so far this year, and the Dow and the S&P 500 are pretty close to break even. But what's happening in the NASDAQ 100 especially are all the heavy-duty big techies that are roaring like crazy, including Amazon and Facebook and all
But
of them.
what is interesting, though, when you say S&P, is that really the other day, for instance, it was Tesla
Oh, yeah.
and Apple were the only big guns, well, Amazon. So 3 of those stocks were fueling that whole drive.
The key thing that happens is they say the top 9 companies represent basically 25% out of the 500.
Well, I bet it's more.
Well, and it could be. But they're talking about how it's weighted between all the companies. But in the meantime, the markets are going like crazy, and people oftentimes say, Joe, why do you think? And I said, well, the market works 6 months to a year in advance. And I think most people believe that our current administration is going to win in this next election, and it's going to be a big impetus for business to excel, that there's not going to be tax increases, et cetera. And that's what they're betting on. On the other hand, I've had a number of people say, Joe, I'm scared. And I said, well, then go to cash. Put your money, let it sit in cash. Don't be invested. And when the election's over, you can buy again.
How about REITs?
Well, see, REITs took a big hit during the recession, but they're coming back too. Real estate investment trust. Well, think about it. All of a sudden, every one of the REITs that invested in apartment projects, that invested in office buildings, that invested in retail projects, they took a monster hit. And are all of those going to come back? Good question. Good questions. Let's face it, the malls.
Well, the retail, it's got to be real questionable.
Well, but
no, but even the people that are renting, they're having trouble paying their rent. So that's
Sure.
income that's coming in.
Exactly.
The key that happens is when you have apartment projects, because all of unemployment, if you have an apartment projects that a REIT, real estate investment trust, owns a couple hundred of these apartment projects, well, guess what? They're still down.
Absolutely.
Because occupancy has gone down, number one. Number two, people are not paying their rent, like you just said.
Right.
In my office building where I'm at, I think we've had a half a dozen people move out in the last week or two. Well, what happens if business goes bad? What do? You quit. You cut your expenses.
And I'm seeing that in the retail market right now. I'm seeing so many vacancies
Big
that are
time
out
in
there,
retail.
and it's hurting these strip centers.
Guess what'll happen? It'll come back because this is America. America's not going out of business. How long? $64,000 question. When will this whole thing get solved? We don't know. But right today on CNBC. The positive news on an antidote and a virus, or what's the word?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Come on, old guy, help me. Anyway, they have very promising news on taking care of this COVID. Okay, so this will be taken care of hopefully by the end of the year, maybe before. Next year, the year after, something else will come along. That's just it never ends. There's always going to be something. But in the meantime, this one, they say, was be the shortest recession in the history of recessions because it was not caused by economic things. It was caused by a pandemic, which is just shut everything down. And look at New York. I can't tell you. You listen to anybody talk about de Blasio right now, they want to lynch him.
They love him.
Who loves him? Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it is sad. Let them open their restaurants. Let them get back on the marketplace. What are we waiting for?
They were just de Blasio. Who was it yesterday? I was talking to a New Yorker. He said both the governor and de Blasio, both of them should be lynched. Forget about impeaching. Just lynch them.
Well, they're talking about Broadway not coming back till maybe late spring.
Well, right. That's sad. That's very sad.
Well, I love going to New York for a long weekend. Well, I'm sure not going. I mean, why would I go?
Go now. There's nobody there. You won't have to worry about all that tussle and bustle,
well,
Joe.
And
any
I can't
travel,
go to
no restaurants.
I can't go to restaurants.
Oh, you're just going to love it. You might be able to see the town for the first time.
Who wants to see the town? I've already seen the town. 340-1590, 340-1590. So I just want to talk about splits real quick. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about life insurance. Now, this is a subject we almost never talk about. And, Alan, I want to bring it up again at 4 o'clock today. I have seen people be approached on life insurance, on variable universal life, and also other forms of index universal life. And here's what happens. Let me just make life simple. Life insurance, X number of dollars goes in the pot to pay for the cost of you dying. So they put into the pot how much money you put in, your age, your sex, and your health, and the actuaries come up and say, hey, we're going to charge you $500 a year for this life insurance. And that's it. But wait a minute. My insurance company is charging me $1,000 a year, not $500. How come? Well, some of these policies have a separate bucket that builds up interest, and that's usually called whole life, or it can be universal life. And that bucket over here can build up cash over a long period of time. Is it a good deal? Well, normally they're paying 1 or 2% interest, which is better than the bank. But the bottom line is there's no free lunches in the world. So if you're overpaying, that money is going into a separate account, even though you're still getting your life insurance, but you always are going to pay more. That's all. Now, there's other contracts, they call them variable universal life or variable life, where this has been sold improperly, incorrectly as an investment. They say, hey, we're going to take your money and invest it in the market, and then we're going to charge the premiums, and you're going to make so much money on this, you'll never have to make a payment. Lie. You're not allowed to say that because nobody knows what the market's going to do. Back again, we're putting in more money than is needed to pay for the insurance, but instead of putting it into an interest-bearing account that's paying 1 or so, we're putting it into the market, which may or may not perform. So just be very, very, very careful when you see these types of things and understand the liquidity problems, meaning, can I cash it in? Sometimes I've seen people put $100,000 into this variable life insurance contract thinking they're never going to make a payment again, and all of a sudden it ran out of money, and now their insurance premium is $10,000 a month. I mean,
it is sad.
It's very sad to watch people get taken advantage of.
Well, I had a friend that he took out a policy and he died too soon. And some people don't realize some of these on the TV that you see. You're purchasing it, and you're not going to get a lot of money. It's enough to bury you, but you have to keep it for 2 years.
Well, the ones that say, hey, no matter what, you can be insured. I don't care how bad the health you are. They have a 2-year period. All they
and
do
they don't
is
tell you that.
They give you back. Well, not on TV, but they have to in the contract. Do you think people read
it? No.
Ooh. Things are misrepresented. Can you believe that?
There is a 2-year, and this is what happened.
Yeah. Ooh,
and
I've never heard that before.
Oh, you see, that's what I'm saying. This is what's good about us.
Yeah.
We know about these things,
Yeah.
and we're able to share it with people to say, be very careful. Because when they look at you paying $30 or $40 or whatever, you think, at least I have something to bury.
Well, I had a client of mine that called me up, says, Joe, I got this great thing through AAA. It's the greatest thing in the world, pays all kinds of stuff, and because I'm a member and I'm a preferred member, I'm going to get a great deal. And I said, read it to me. Well, it was an accident policy only. It didn't pay on normal death. It only paid if you got hurt in an accident. Okay. What's the odds of that happening? Well, not as good as cancer or lung or brain or something, because when you're old, the odds are better that you're going to die of a disease than get run over by a truck. Now, maybe when you're a skydiver, scuba diver, professionally, people that blow up buildings, you got a higher risk. But guess what? Most insurance companies look at that risk and they don't want you, or they're going to double, triple charge you. So,
of course,
just be very, very careful about how the wording goes. And again, when you're in the business like Victoria is in real estate and I am in finance and investments, some of this stuff we take for granted. We do it every day. What we try to do on this show is educate people to pay attention, and we don't mind a phone call, even on the phone, to look at something over the phone. I've met with people and we've called up the companies directly because I know the questions to ask to let people find out that they're really, really upset. But they weren't upset before it got there, but when they found out they were lied to, or let's put it this way, not told the whole truth, it can be a problem.
It's a big problem, especially when you're sitting in that situation when somebody's passed away and you think you have something and you don't.
Well, here's a problem. We only have 15 seconds left, Joe.
340-1590, 340-1590. Call the station anytime. They'll take your name and number or give you ours, and we'll get back to you. And I think, Chief, are we done? Say goodbye, Alan.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.
WPSL Port St. Lucie.